Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Please let me know if you can hear me. Please let me know if you can see me. I'm having some issues with my laptop, somewhat of a connection issue. It seems global, so it's definitely not just the internet. Everything is running slower. So please let me know if you can see me moving, if you see me frozen. A lot of my streaming that I was testing before this was running slow and my picture was freezing. So please do in the chat, let me know how I sound. Let me know how I look, if there's some issues with that, if I'm frozen. I was a bit concerned that it was going to affect this stream. And I really don't want it to affect tomorrow's conversation with Richard Wolff. So, all right. Tom, hello. Thank you. Yeah, okay. So it says I'm slightly fuzzy. Says 22 many. But okay, all good. Says hello, Strong Veek. Hello, hello, hello. All right, good evening, everyone. Good early evening here from the East Coast of the United States, New York. How are you? It's been a long while. I took a week off or so. And of course, a lot happens in these times where we decide to take a breather. But as you're coming in, before I get started, definitely like this stream. Definitely hit that subscription button, that notifications bell. And of course, I'm just $40 away. I was only $30 just a few days ago, but $40 away per month from my annual goal, which is very exciting on Patreon. So patreon.com/Dhaiphong. We're going into July. Please do subscribe there to support this work. That is the best way to support this channel. So keep an eye out on my picture. Keep an eye out on my sound. My sound should be fine, but if I'm freezing or anything like that, just let me know. For some reason, my laptop is having some issues. I didn't bring it with me when I was traveling, and it was I don't know if I think I shut it down. So after 3 days of being shut down, now it's running quite slow. So please do just let me know how things are going. It seems like everyone was doing just fine, seeing me, hearing me. So welcome everyone. Welcome Holly. Welcome Big Teal. Welcome Felix. Happy Sunday chat indeed. I said hello to you. I believe Holly already. Hi Liz. Hi Anthony. Greetings everyone. Greetings, of course, as you're coming into the stream. Hit that like button. Hit that subscription button if you haven't subscribed yet. Hit the notifications bell so you know I'm here. Hello Isaac. Hello, hello. And be sure, I'm almost $40 per month away from my annual goal on Patreon. Very exciting. But we are hitting that end of the month, meaning that in this time of capitalist economic crisis, which we will get to later in the stream, it's likely that that goal is still a bit away. But please do subscribe and help me get there. We're in month 7 almost. So just $40 per month away. Will get me to that goal, and I appreciate all of you for coming, all of you for being here, and all of you who are supporting me on Patreon, on Substack, or in any other way, monetary or otherwise. So, hi, Long Cat is long. Thank you. I really was happy to be on that documentary, CGT and the 7 Deadly Sins of Western mainstream media. That was fun. Okay, now looks like people are coming in. They're coming into the stream here. So as you're doing that, hit that like button and we'll get started. So I'll be on until about probably 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then I'm going to pivot on to call in at 6:45 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to send you all that link in the chat. It's also in the description of the video already. And we can have a live conversation for about 45 minutes after that. Okay? So I'll be doing things till 7:30 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Be sure to stick around here, though, because this is the really good part. And, of course, call in will be fun too, because we can talk together in a more direct way. All right, so I want to get to this because there's a lot to say about it. First, I'm just going to open up with my own position, my own take on this Roe v. Wade, this issue of abortion rights, right? So, what was that now? That was Friday, I believe, correct? Friday the 24th. The court ruled, Supreme Court, SCOTUS for short, ruled that they are reversing, right? I think it was what, a 6-3 or 5-4 decision, reversing Roe v. Wade, which had been on the books for more than 50 years. It was a precedent, it was a case that basically protected the right for an abortion, although the Hyde Amendment really restricted a lot of federal funding and investment in a capacity to support that right. Nonetheless, it was something that especially liberals and progressives were very proud of. However, there was always a caveat to this. Just like anything else that lives in the Supreme Court, this unelected body rooted in chattel slavery, rooted in the colonial, or we're still in a colonial period in the United States. Let me strike that from the record and say, rooted in the days where private property in the form of chattel slavery required these unelected institutions like the Supreme Court to protect it. And that's what the Supreme Court has done. The Supreme Court is probably the most egregious form of bourgeois governance, which is all about protecting private property, all about protecting capital, all about forwarding. If you look at the hundreds, thousands of Supreme Court cases over the years, most of them have to do with how to expand and protect the interests of capital. And that's what this decision ultimately does as well. And my position on abortion rights is it's absolutely ridiculous that we're even having this conversation. Really, I think that the Democrats are solely to blame here. I mean, not only to blame, but really primarily and solely to blame for this catastrophe, for really setting the political dial back once again, because this is what the Democrats have done for now 2+ generations. They have sat on their hands on issues that are supposed to be in their wheelhouse, and then on issues which many people wrongly disassociate from the Democratic Party, war, austerity, racism, those kind of things. They've actually embraced and furthered and put both of their feet forward along with their Republican partners. And so on this issue, this is one of those issues where Democrats are supposed to be on the right side. And over and over and over again, how many times did the Democratic Party basically allow something like this to happen? They set the foundation for this. We know that Nancy Pelosi, during the 2016-17 period when Donald Trump was elected, was talking about how abortion rights was basically a distraction. It was something that actually hurt the Democratic Party because it allowed Donald Trump to get elected. You had Barack Obama campaigning on making the stipulations of Roe v. Wade legislating and codifying the terms of Roe v. Wade. And what did he do when he was elected in 2008? He said, no, this is not a priority anymore. We know in the 80s, Joe Biden was actually campaigning against abortion rights. He was someone who championed the Hyde Amendment, who was anti-abortion during that period of his Senate career. So the Democratic Party cannot be trusted. We know that Hillary Clinton has always been very much on all sides of the fence of this issue. We know that the Clinton administration, we know that the Obama administration, now the Biden administration, all had opportunities to codify this, and they didn't do it. And so now you even have what I would perceive to be mostly Democrats, or at least people associated with the Democratic Party, and then otherwise people who don't, but mostly those who are Democrats protesting in the streets saying that the Democratic Party voting for them is not enough. And then you even had, after this decision was made You had the Democratic Party, you had Nancy Pelosi, you had the DNC texting, emailing those on its list saying that they needed to now vote harder for the Democrats and also give money. Give the Democratic Party money. That to me is even more insulting, because part of what this decision does is it is also an assault on working class people, primarily women, but anyone who considers themselves affected by family planning and bodily autonomy and these kind of issues. This affects the entire working class. Anytime there's an assault on any section of the working class, women, LGBTQ plus people, anytime there's an assault on them like this decision, it's going to affect everybody. And it's going to further the privatization of health services. It's going to further atomize and reduce the capacity of the state to meet people's needs. And that's a very bad thing. And it's very insulting that a corporate party like the Democratic Party would even go there. But they have to go there because November is less than 6 months away. And the Democratic Party is looking really bad for the midterm elections. And so this is going to be the issue that they're going to try to ride on in order to run against a Republican Party, which isn't so attractive. It just happens to be not the party with the majority right now in Congress. And of course, the Republicans don't have the presidency right now. So they can kind of sit pretty and be the quote unquote outsider party and say, well, look at what the Democrats have done on the economy, on Russia, Ukraine, all of that. And it is biting the Biden administration and the Democrats really hard. So there's going to be a lot of virtue signaling. And I think that should just push forward this message that the Democratic Party is not, it's just not it. It not only is it not it, but it is absolutely positioned against those who are most affected by this. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton. We go down the line, all of these, really the leadership of the Democratic Party, they didn't fight for it. They haven't fought for it in 5 decades. They allowed it to sit in the Supreme Court, and RBG didn't retire. I'm not even gonna call her Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay, call her right now. I can't believe I did that. Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't retire. She died. Trump got to choose all sorts of. He got to choose many of the Supreme Court justices. We know that Obama could have pushed harder to do the same thing as Trump was able to do, and he didn't do it. And so the Supreme Court is worse than useless. It's an institution that is designed to conduct an assault on the interests of working class people. And the Democratic Party is no better. The Democratic Party just happens to be a party that participates in elections, and the Supreme Court doesn't do that. That's really the difference here. Both of them, though, are making decisions, putting forward policies that absolutely are not in the interests of us. And not only are they not in our interest, but we don't have any say over them, right? We don't have any say. We haven't had any say over how the Democrats behave over the last 2 generations around this issue. Certainly all the others. And we don't have any say what the Supreme Court does. Look at what what's his name? The Supreme Court the Supreme Court judge, what's his name? Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name. Help me out. The Black Supreme Court justice. Help me out. He had the absolute audacity to say, Clarence Thomas. Thank you, Anthony. I can't believe I forget his name. But, I always get confused by Clarence Thomas because he is named after, he has the same name as someone I really, really, really respect, a longshore workers union leader or communist, Clarence Thomas, with the ILWU out in the West Coast. And so I always get them confused. So apologies for that. I don't even at all think about Clarence Thomas. But you saw what Clarence Thomas said, right? This isn't just about abortion. We're going to go after all the other things. all the other things, right? Contraception. I mean, we can go on and on. LGBTQ rights, whatever it is, the Supreme Court wants to go after. And then this is all about the culture wars, right? Because this is all about stirring the flames. It's an election season, and it's really a test to the Democrats. And we know that the Democrats are going to fail this test because their primary interest is just their careers. It's just the next election. Give us money. They don't care about this abortion rights issue, just like they don't care about all these other issues that we've been talking about here on this show for a long time. But I want to get into something that's really bugging me about this issue in particular. And it comes up whenever the Democrats seem to take a big hit, because this is a big hit for the Democratic Party. You have, I mean, it's a small majority, but it's a majority. I don't want to hear we don't have a congressional majority. This is what Democrats always say. I put it on Twitter. You saw that whenever the Democrats have any kind of majority, you saw it in 2008, 2009, the Democratic Party had a bigger majority than it does now in Congress. Did nothing with it except forward, I don't know, what was it? The Heritage Foundation's healthcare plan, Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, right? Did things like that, but didn't do the Employee Free Choice Act, no public option, right? Further privatization of education. All these promises either broken or ignored. They were forwarded under Obama with a majority. Obama used that majority to try to cut Social Security and Medicare. I don't know if you remember that. And eventually, it was too late by the time the push really got going. By 2011, that majority was gone, and the $4 trillion, I think it was, in deficit spending, it didn't happen. But Obama put Social Security and Medicare on the chopping block. So this is what the Democrats do when they have a majority. They actually just complain about how the Republicans are stymieing their progressive campaign promises. And then when they don't have it, they talk a big game. I don't know if you remember during the Trump period, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris thumping their chests about everything from Russiagate to healthcare to, they were just all over the place talking about all these things that they were going to do, working toward their 2020 campaigns. And now that Joe Biden is in office, none of them are saying Medicare for all. None of them are thumping their chests about anything, police reform, any of it. They don't do it. But when they don't have a majority, when they are the party, quote unquote, on the outside, they like to talk a little bit of a bigger game. They like to make a scene. They like to pretend that they're challenging the Republicans. They'll submit legislation that will never go anywhere because it's easy. They don't have to be accountable. And the same goes here. Now they have to be accountable, or they should be accountable, and nothing is happening. All you're seeing is fundraising text messages and emails, and Biden and everyone else telling you to vote harder for the Democrats. I mean, it's absolutely pathetic. They don't care about women's rights, abortion rights, LGBTQ plus rights. Democratic Party doesn't care. They only virtue signal. They only co-opt. That is their job. They really rob any kind of political substance from these movements because that's what they're designed to do. That's what the Democratic Party is designed to do. Send all of these movements to the graveyard, detach them from any kind of class struggle and class analysis. And so here we are in a very, very difficult moment. And one of the things that you see is Susan Sarandon trending. She immediately started trending after this decision, and she was trending for quite a while. I myself was not, I was still on my break, so I wasn't trying to engage, but I couldn't help but engage. So I'm going to pull up a few of these tweets, and I just find it, between Jill Stein and Susan Sarandon, I mean, these women are, to the shit libs, to the Democratic Party loyalists, to the Clintonites, to the Obamites, to these real parasites within the elite and the liberal, quote unquote, establishment, the quote unquote liberal establishment. They are obsessed with Susan Sarandon. I mean, Jill Stein is also in there too, but Susan Sarandon, whenever anything happens that is bad news for the Democrats, it's Susan Sarandon's fault. And the same goes for the Roe v. Wade decision. Now it's Susan Sarandon's fault. She controls the Supreme Court, I guess. And it's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely. It's infuriating too, because Susan Sarandon, I mean, I had, she got into something with some of my content, and I actually kind of feel bad. I was a little angry when she rolled back and apologized for sharing my content around the police rally that happened in New York City. But it ain't that big of a deal. I just was very surprised by that. But I want to show you a series of tweets. Let's see how long it. Okay, good. It's going a little faster now. First, Brooklyn Dad. I've seen this guy. I don't know who this guy is. I mean, first of all, look, I'm not going to judge, but I'm going to say he's one ugly guy. I don't know who. If your politics are this ugly, you got to be an ugly guy. So I don't know who he is. He has a big Twitter following. I don't know if he's some sort of Democratic Party operative. He must be. But I see his tweets around sometimes, and I just try to ignore him, ignore some of these figures, because it's like you could talk about guys like this, people like this all the time, because they're everywhere, and they're like spam bots. That's how I view them. I mean, they view us like that. I view them like that. But this guy says, I can't help but wonder if Susan Sarandon is proud of herself. Brooklyn Dad Defiant. And he's got that peace sign, but if you click on his profile, which I will not do, it has a Ukraine flag. So you know what kind of quote unquote peace he's all for. But nonetheless, I think this tweet, I'm going to go over a few others, but this tweet is kind of the encapsulation of, I think, the just absolute brain rot that exists within the Democratic Party establishment, blaming Susan Sarandon for the reversal of Roe v. Wade, rather than blaming, I don't know, Nancy Pelosi for deprioritizing this issue, Barack Obama for deprioritizing this issue, Joe Biden before, when he was a senator, literally voting against this issue in 1982, or maybe in 2020, also saying, oh yeah, I'm reversing my position on the Hyde Amendment, and yet doing nothing about it, doing nothing about this issue. I mean, that's the least of, I think, Joe Biden's do nothing administration, what he's been unable to accomplish with his signature so-called Build Back Better plan, collecting dust right now. But this is the attitude that these Democrat establishment loyalists have, that Susan Sarandon, the actress, the activist, I mean, she's done a lot of interesting activist work around environment. She shows up at union rallies. She supported Bernie Sanders, and that was her crime. And you'll see, because they talk about it like this. I'm going to just take Brooklyn Dad down. Where is he? Okay, I'm going to take Brooklyn Dad down, and I'm going to pull up another one. This one is a little more specific, actually. Oh no, did I lose it? Oh yeah, okay. I'm just on her profile. Here we go. So this is from Shantizi the Real. All right. So Shantizi the Real is going to tell us all the women who are responsible for this, and just you'll notice something about them. So Shantizi the Real, I don't know who this is either. She's in my city. She's only a few stops away, probably, for me. She said, oh, this is just more folks. Never mind. But she says Bernie Sanders is responsible for Trump being elected. Actually, I'm going to try to find the tweet here. I had it up. But she had a whole tweet about the women who were responsible. Where is it? Damn, you tweet too much. She had a whole list of women, with Susan Sarandon and Jill Stein, of course, making the cut. This is unfortunate. I hate when that happens. I must have clicked something. Here. Wow. So she tweets and retweets a lot. All right. While you're waiting, please like the stream, all that good stuff. Hit that subscription button. Hit the notifications bell. Here we go. Here's the list of women that are responsible for why Roe v. Wade has been overturned. I mean, this is hardcore right here. I mean, look, I don't know how relevant this person is. I think she's got like 20,000 followers. I'm not going to indulge you in her whole profile, whatever. I don't know. She's a Democratic Party operative in some respect, whether she's just a supporter, someone who's very passionate, or actually works for them. But look at this. Susan Sarandon, Brianna Gray. Okay, so she left out Brianna Joy Gray, the full name, but all right, Brianna Gray, Brianna Joy, Nina Turner, Rose McGowan, Crystal Ball, Katie Halper, and Marianne Williamson. I mean, she left out Jill Stein. Usually, real Democratic Party operatives know and blame Jill Stein because they blame any third party, and Jill Stein was the last one who challenged Hillary Clinton. And a lot of this is circling around Hillary Clinton. And you saw in the past tweet, right, where I didn't even want to show it, but she was talking about how these are the people that got Trump elected over Hillary Clinton. And all of these shit libs and Democratic Party loyalists are so obsessed about that election still. They have power right now. The Democratic Party has a majority. Kamala Harris's vote is the vote that enforces that majority in Congress, and they have the Oval Office. They have the White House. So it's just so funny that they're so pathetic. They're so stagnant. They're so irrelevant, and they are just exposing how much of a rotten, stagnant, capitalist corporate party the Democratic Party is when they can't even, with this majority, do anything but focus on the 2016 election. I mean, the 2016 election was like almost 6 years ago now. We're talking, and more than 6 years ago when you consider just how long that thing really lasted, because the primary seemed like it went on forever. And then Russiagate, when Russiagate came about, it lasted after, and now, of course, into 2022, because people like this and the mainstream media, the corporate media, they all reinforce this, right? It's Susan Sarandon didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. They always quote her when she said that she is not at all regretful for voting for Bernie Sanders in the primary, right? She says that she's firm on that. She's been firm ever since that moment. And they always try to, the Democrats, the loyalists, they always try to get her on that. But all these folks, right? Nina Turner, Rose McGowan, Crystal Ball, Katie Halper, and Marianne Williamson, all these folks, they're being attacked for just simply not giving 100% full support for Hillary Clinton. Not all of these folks said don't vote for Joe Biden or don't vote for Hillary Clinton. I don't think Marianne Williamson was one of those people after the primary. Hillary Clinton won the primary. Hillary Clinton, right? People like, I don't think Nina Turner was advocating for people not to vote for Hillary Clinton. I don't remember that. But this is just a way to deflect attention from the shortcomings of the Democratic Party. That's what is really at issue here. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at any and every attempt. That's what Russiagate was. Any and every attempt to get the eyeballs off of the Democrats. That's what is at issue here. And so it's just absolutely pathetic. Look at that list of people. Susan Sarandon, Brianna Joy Gray, Nina Turner, Rose McGowan. These are all just people who have criticized the establishment Democrats, who have said, well, Hillary Clinton isn't a feminist, in my opinion. Well, Joe Biden's record is concerning, because these folks have just simply raised issues, legitimate issues with the Democratic Party and what it has done, what people like Hillary Clinton have done over the course of their long and illustrious careers of servitude to capital. They're being attacked by Shantizi the Real and Brooklyn Dad and all of these loyalists, and they got Susan Sarandon trending because of this. And I'm going to show you one more thing in regards to Susan Sarandon. There's one more tweet. It's a conversation that David Sirota was having, and you know, David Sirota and I certainly don't share, I would say, a united worldview on everything, but I think this conversation that he had on Twitter makes a good point. By this guy Scott Peterson, this is more of a little bit of a conversation that gives you a little bit more detail about how this actually works. And so he says future historians will use Twitter keyword search data for Susan Sarandon to document the extent of the mental illness problem that plagued Democratic politics in this era. Then Scott Peterson said, quote, asked if she had previously commented that Clinton would have been more dangerous than Trump. The actor told The Guardian, not exactly, but I don't mind that, quote. I did think she was very, very dangerous. We would still be fracking. We would still be at war if she was president. And so Scott Peterson keeps going. I'm sure all the women who lost their constitutional rights today appreciate your hurt feelings in response to somebody who said she laughed at Gaddafi after he was assassinated. So anyway, he is blaming. He's saying we're speaking of a holier-than-thou Sirota, Sarandon et al., who won't own the fact that Roe was overturned, but none of them have the integrity to take responsibility. They own the fact. They are the ones who own this, right? Basically, anyone who criticizes the Democratic Party owns the Roe v. Wade decision. Not the politicians, not the elites, not the establishment that sat on their hands, that actively campaigned against it, that said it wasn't a priority. Obama, Biden, Clinton. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's not the fault of multiple congressional majorities over the last 50 years and not passing it, seeing it as an issue that you can't worry the Christian fundamentalists. You can't worry certain sections of the United States. This is how elite politics works. It's not about the interest of humanity. It's all about the interest of the state and of how to reproduce the political dynamic of the state, which will serve capital best. And right now, getting rid of Roe v. Wade, or at least striking it down for the near future, was within the political interests of a certain subsection of the elite. And the Democratic Party right now are showing no signs. And I'm just going to take down these screenshots now. They're showing no signs that they care about this issue enough outside of using it as a campaign opportunity. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think this is what it's all about. Because part of the anti-Susan Sarandon sentiment, this vitriol, this attack on Susan Sarandon, Russiagate, all of this, it is all about political campaigning. It's a failed strategy. Hillary Clinton lost because of this strategy. Joe Biden could have lost. He could have lost in 2020 if Donald Trump didn't make what, in my opinion, were just fatal errors in the last, few months of his administration right before people cast votes. He could have, but Joe Biden certainly wasn't a shoo-in to win the 2020 election, even though he won it by, I guess, a larger margin than I think many of us predicted. But yeah, this is not being taken seriously. You saw Beto O'Rourke in Texas. He got flooded by protesters. I didn't see him confidently going up there and saying, yeah, we're going to send in the Congress. We're going to really fix this, right? We're going to legislate this. I haven't seen Nancy Pelosi say that. I haven't seen Joe Biden say that. All I've seen them say is vote for us harder. Vote blue no matter who harder in 2022 midterms. Vote for us harder. Oh, don't just vote for us harder, though. Give us more money. This is a corporate party that in the last two election cycles, at least for president, I don't know the details of all the congressional candidates, but I know they raise millions too. But Biden, Clinton, they all had billion-dollar war chests. They don't need your money. They have money. They got rich people money. They have 1% money. They have corporate money. But yet they still ask for it because that's what capitalists do. They take. This is a take-all economy. This is take-all politics. No issue matters more than that. So Roe v. Wade doesn't matter as much as reifying and reproducing this political dynamic, this two-party duopoly, this corporate state, the capitalist state. It doesn't matter. Roe v. Wade, abortion rights. And it's not just abortion rights. What Clarence Thomas was saying, I mean, that's kind of been happening in all other areas, right? Joe Biden promised more police fundings, deported more people. Wars, right, have expanded and extended. Julian Assange is being lynched most likely will be extradited unless political conditions change, right? We're talking about a Joe Biden administration that escalated the new Cold War on Russia and China, has invaded Somalia, and has increased the military budget to its largest it's ever been, sent 40 billion, 50 plus $billion to Ukraine in a few months, risking World War III, is sitting atop this massive inflation crisis that's due to an economic crisis, which we will get to, but is due to an economic crisis. That's all about how the state is fueling and funneling trillions of dollars, and they've been doing this since the pandemic, trillions of dollars to monopoly capital and finance capital at the expense of all of us, transferring wealth. And now that this economy, this capitalist economy, is on shaky ground because of the way that the US and NATO have overstretched things, have really taken a leap that I think is a huge miscalculation. Now the capitalists are saying, we're going to take more. We're going to take more because the risk is even higher. And we're going to get to that later. But Joe Biden sits atop this. The Democratic Party sits atop this. It's a worsening crisis of legitimacy by design. This is all by design because the Democratic Party doesn't want to be held accountable for anything. They don't want to be held accountable for peace. They don't want to be held accountable for police reform and addressing mass incarceration. They don't want to be held accountable for improving the condition of working class people. They don't want to be accountable for healthcare and infrastructure and all of that, those things that we need. They don't want to be held accountable for those things. So they find any way to position themselves which will give them some sort of, a moral high ground, a woke high ground, whatever it is. And Susan Sarandon happens to be a punching bag for that, right? Susan Sarandon didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, said she was more dangerous than Trump, so she's to blame for Trump, so she's to blame for this whole situation. That's the logic. And guess what? Russia hacked our elections. They did all this stuff, and we have no proof for it. I basically made it up, but believe us, because we're under attack from a foreign power. It's not our fault that we can't do anything, right? That's what this is all about. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. The Democratic Party is pushing that line. And how many times have you seen these loyalists use Susan Sarandon or Jill Stein, all the folks, Katie Halper? I mean, I love Katie Halper. Love those folks who do the good work. And they get attacked just for criticizing the Democrats. I mean, there are things that they say that are, I think, more radical than just criticizing the Democrats. That, to me, that feels like a mainstream thing now, right? On all sides of the political spectrum, people are pretty angry with the Democratic Party, and I think that's why the hostility toward those who are trying to push forward a real positive vision, a left vision, a socialist vision, they get attacked the most. And we just have to be vigilant about this. We have to be vigilant about this. But there's a lot of people on the stream. Thank you for coming, everyone. I saw the chat was pretty active. I'm going to close up this segment about Susan Sarandon because there isn't much else to say about this other than they are going after Susan Sarandon to deflect from their shortcomings. And how convenient is this decision about Roe v. Wade during this global catastrophe, economic catastrophe, this imperialist catastrophe over Ukraine, this proxy war that the U.S. is waging with Russia. It's all so convenient now that the Democrats can pivot and use Roe v. Wade as a campaign issue when they haven't for decades fought for abortion rights in any significant way and actually have done more to lead up to this moment than not. So nonetheless, let's move on to the next issue. But while you're here, do like this stream, do hit that subscription button, hit that notifications bell so you're notified. I'm about $40 a month away from my goal on Patreon for the year. It'd be incredible if you could support me there. You can find that link in the description, patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong, and other ways to support me as well. So yeah, that's, I had to talk about this because it's just absolutely pathetic. It's ridiculous. It's just infuriating. It's infuriating that we have to continue to hear Susan Sarandon's name in all the ways and reasons that I don't want to hear it. I want to know what Susan Sarandon does when she's out on the picket line, when she's doing her activism, when she's standing up for Julian Assange or whatever. That's when I care about what Susan Sarandon has to say and do. I don't care what shit libs and Democratic Party loyalists and corporate Democrats have to say about Susan Sarandon and their strange, addled mind conspiracy theories about how Susan Sarandon plotted through her mere opinions to shift the political dynamic for the Democratic Party. It not only sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's pathetic, and it shows that there is a deep rot in the Democratic Party that is all about this decay of the overall system. Because the Democratic Party took a gamble through the establishment of what was it? Bill Clinton's organization, the Leadership Council, the DLC. They went all in for the Reagan ideology and policy orientation. They went all in with capital because once the Democratic Party saw the movements were weaker, there was more fertile ground. All of its establishment said, this is the time to cash in, and we can do some real good work for the bourgeoisie and the capitalists. And that's what they've been doing. And they have designed and organized themselves to neutralize any political movement, any political organization, political movement that says, no, we're going to move in a different direction. We're going to be independent. We're going to organize third-party politics. We're going to organize grassroots movements. Every single time that has happened, the Democratic Party has moved in to act as a political arm of counterinsurgency, to go along with the state repression that always happens, social movements, to go along with the propaganda war. They actively participate in the propaganda war against progressives, against leftists, against socialists. And of course, they participate willfully in the propaganda war for the U.S. foreign policy establishment. So the Democratic Party took that gamble, and it's worked out for the establishment, and it has been very, very devastating for the rest of us. So if there's never a time to exit the Democratic Party and build something else, that time is now. Roe v. Wade, we shouldn't need Roe v. Wade to teach us that. We shouldn't need this moment to teach us that. But hopefully it'll teach many more folks who are still caught in that political bind to break out of it and to begin seeking other paths for what we're really looking for: liberation and emancipation from this capitalist exploitation, imperialist exploitation in all of its forms. So I want to talk about something else. So tomorrow, if a lot of folks are here, thank you for joining me on this Sunday evening. So like this stream, subscribe if you haven't yet. And of course, hit that notifications bell, subscribe on Patreon because I'm so close, $40 per month away from my goal. But while I'm here, I want to announce something. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking to Richard Wolff about an expanded, right? You'll get my opinion. Then I'm going to ask him about the economic crisis before us. So I want to talk about this. Capitalism is in crisis. Capitalism is in pretty bad crisis right now, everyone. I'm going to talk to Richard Wolff tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time. The event is already, or the video is already there. You can, reserve your seat or whatever people do. Hit the notify me button. Make sure that you come for that tomorrow, Monday, June 27th, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have a great conversation about this topic, but I wanted to get my opinion here because I don't like, sometimes I like to go back and forth with guests. Well, Richard Wolff, I'm going to let him go. But I want to talk about this capitalist crisis, okay? So today, Business Insider. So you probably have been following the news, right? Or just living life. You've seen, I'm sure, what has been an absolutely disastrous economic situation here in the United States, right? People are paying incredible amounts for gas and food and everything. Everything's going up. People's rents, right? People are trying to find places to live and work, like in New York City. They're saying that the rents are going up 300%, right? They're calling it, a bull economy. There's like just prices are just out of control. Some people are paying $8-9 a gallon for gas. It's horrendous out there right now. This is a really bad situation. And the capitalists, especially finance capital, they are telling us their perspective about why this is happening and what's going to happen. And believe it or not, but what finance capital is saying, and I'm going to pull up the article. What finance capital is saying is that we need an economic crisis to get out of the inflation crisis. Yes, that's what they're saying. We need an economic crisis to get out of the inflation crisis. And I'm going to pull up the article here. It's an absolute, this is one of the good things about Business Insider, Financial Times, is you will get the perspective of the elite. You will get the perspective of the elite. And here you go. Well, it's quite big letters. Wall Street's elite investors are convinced a recession is all but inevitable, and the stock market's collapse has only just begun. And so this is a really recent article. This was written today. It came out today. So I'm going to try to go through it quickly. There's some key points here. But one of the things, capitalist media, especially straight up capitalist media, like Business Insider, Financial Times, these are institutions run by investors, not necessarily just invested in by big capital, but these are investor like driven. So they're just talking like they're at shop, So she's calling them maestros. I'm like, I feel it in my bones when I have to I read an article that calls these fucking parasites maestros. I want to just scream. Anyway, so Wall Street is afraid the economy has entered an inflation feedback loop from hell in which wages and prices push each other up until the Federal Reserve is forced to do something drastic, cause a recession. So that's what they're saying, that they're going to cause a recession, that the Federal Reserve needs to cause a recession. And I'm going to get you, they go into capitalist economics a bit here, which I find interesting. I can't wait for Richard Wolff to also expand on this, but inflation is surging. Americans are feeling miserable. Haven't seen this economy in 40 years. Interest rates are jacking up, which we haven't seen in 3 decades, all right? And Wall Street has been pushed from skepticism about the Fed's ability to control inflation to apoplectic certainty that it's already failed. The Fed was always going to have a difficult time managing the transition between the pandemic and our return to a semblance of normalcy, handling an economy that suddenly lost and then just suddenly regained millions of jobs, experienced massive shifts in how people spend their money, and had to deal with the shock of Russia's war with Ukraine was always going to be a dance on knife's edge. But some of Wall Street's most elite investors now worry that Chairman Jerome Powell and his fellow Fed members have already fallen on their faces. In particular, these market maestros. I'm sorry. Market maestros. I can't even with that. Like, what the fuck is a market maestro? Anyway, are worried that inflation has become so entrenched that it's no longer just about acute shortages of raw materials or supply chain disruptions. Instead, it's being propagated by a deeper psychological dynamic. The Federal Reserve wants us to think inflation is about various goods prices, gas, food, lumber, coffee. But when prices go completely parabolic in those goods, that's just a bull market in whatever commodity that is. And that's not the problem we have now. The problem now is that it's spread to the services sector of the economy. We're in a rage price spiral. So this is great. This is great because I want to comment on this. This is like the bastardization of Marxism right here. This is like when capital is trying to tell you how capitalism works in a way that makes capitalism not look as bad as it really does. But what usually happens is it just looks completely irrational and usually makes no sense. So this doesn't make much sense here. It works like this, they say. People believe the cost of living will go up. They just believe. People. All right. So they demand higher wages to keep up with those price increases. So workers think that they're going to have to pay more for rent. Workers think they're going to have to pay more for food. So wages have to go up. So supposedly the people demand that. In response, businesses increase the price of whatever they're selling to make up for high labor costs. So then workers need another raise to keep up with those new higher prices. And then businesses increase their prices. You get it. It's a feedback loop. So basically what they're saying is, and this is, I mean, Marx said this. Marx said this in Capital. Marx said this in Wage, Prices, Profit. He said this in Value, Price, and Profit, and all those good texts. He did say that when labor fights, that increases the labor costs that capitalists incur, and capitalists will try to find other ways to make up for that. And that's sort of what they're saying here. But not only is this blaming workers who, I mean, there is some worker organizing, and I can't say that it's not important, okay? There has been strikes. There has been worker organizing, unionization. There are big campaigns. But really what they're speaking to is not that. They're not saying, shoot, like workers are in motion. They're asking for the world. They're not saying that. They're saying that because of the pandemic economic situation, workers are expecting more. And you saw the mass quitting. It's still happening. People don't want to work in these absolutely BS jobs. They don't want to work in them. So they're demanding higher wages. They're demanding higher wages to keep up with the increases. Really, people want a little bit more because they're faced with a pandemic situation. So businesses are increasing the price. Businesses are increasing the price of whatever they're selling to make up for labor costs. Too bad they're not explaining to you what surplus value is. How do these companies make their profits? How do corporations make profits? Well, corporations make profits by only paying the worker what is socially necessary to reproduce them based on a given historical condition, based on a circumstances, economic, political, social, but the bare subsistence that workers need to reproduce themselves in a given historical moment, and they pocket the rest. They take the rest. That's what surplus value is. A worker will work X amount of hours, produce X amount of goods at X amount of value. They will get X amount of that value in their wages, and the capitalist takes the rest. The capitalist didn't work, and then the capitalist divides it between profits, that will be used for rent and et cetera, and capital amortization, and constant cap, things that you need to expand capital, to expand production, and then they'll pocket the rest of that for what, and then that's how you continue to accumulate profits, by pocketing the surplus value of the worker and of workers. Business Insider, of course, is not going into that, and investors are not going to get into that, billionaire investors. But that's what they're not telling you, is that it's not that businesses have to do this. It's not a must that they must do. They're literally responding this way. One, out of opportunism. This is an opportunity. Let's cash in. And two, out of this like market fear, right? This fear in the market based on many things, right? Based on the pandemic related economy, the uncertainties around the world, all of these things. But really what this is saying is that businesses, big business capitalists, they're raising the price to keep up with labor costs, meaning they just want to make more profits. They want to increase the rate of surplus value, and they want to increase the rate of exploitation. That's all this is saying. So that's what a lot, if not the majority, if not all of this inflation is about. I've been saying it. This is a take-all economy. This is a moment where these robber barons, these investors are taking everything. They just want to take as much as they can. They want to take advantage of this moment. They want to push this. They've been pushing this egregious austerity, and now they want to shove it down our throats with this inflation. And as this Business Insider is saying, it's a cascading effect. because the more inflation there is, the more workers suffer. The more workers suffer, the more workers want more. Ostensibly, workers are going to want more to keep up because, well, you need enough to socially reproduce labor. So what's socially necessary to reproduce labor? Well, you got a lot of homelessness. You got a lot of risk of homelessness right now. You have a lot of risk of bankruptcy. People making choices between food, rent, healthcare, driving to work, right? I mean, these are desperate things. And so what they're saying is that the only way to get rid of this in the capitalist mind, and this is what is most insidious about this, is to create an economic crisis, facilitate one. Why would that help? Because what happens during an economic crisis? You shrink production, you lay off workers, you basically create a situation of just cutbacks at all levels, but generally through employment. And to them, to the capitalists, this is great because they know they're going to, on the back end, make up, or if not get more from the Federal Reserve, from the US government and subsidies than they would otherwise. So they're looking for that cashing out. They want to cash out because the capitalist economy no longer cashes in. It's in crisis. It's stagnant. A take-all economy cannot stabilize. So let's just keep going. The best investors are paid to predict what nightmares would befall the market and avoid or capitalize on them. So that's what I said. Capitalize. They're literally telling you that they want to capitalize on your suffering. In a wage price spiral, opportunities are hard to find and danger is everywhere. If these investors are correct, the Fed will have to raise the interest rates dramatically to break the feedback loop and stabilize the price of labor. While that happens, stocks will keep tanking, jobs will be lost, and there's a chance that the country could tip into recession. There are no good options here. I got a good option. We need a socialist revolution. We need these investors to no longer have political power. They need to be displaced. They are not just moribund, but they are absolutely unnecessary to the upkeep and reproduction, not just of labor, not just of life itself, but they really are just unnecessary to the future of this planet. They offer nothing but pain and suffering and exploitation. They're telling you that they are looking to create an opportunity for themselves to get richer through this crisis. That's what they're telling you. So how bad is inflation? So 8.6%, you might have heard in May. Energy prices skyrocketed by 34.6%. Food prices up 10.1%. The cost of shelter up 5%. Oh my gosh. But what was stunning and most worrying to Wall Street was not only how sharp the price hikes were, but also how widespread. We knew that the prices of things such as gas and eggs were going to be driven higher because of the Ukraine invasion. We knew that supply issues stemming from the pandemic would push up prices for some big ticket goods. But inflation has also made its way into the service industries, cab fares, pet groomers, dry cleaning. That's especially eye-catching because inflation is stickier in the service sector, where it's driven not only by lack of supply, but also by a lack of price stability. So I'm not going to go through this whole article. Well, it's not that long, but I think I've said everything that they're about to say with just some of these numbers. I think the most important thing here as well, not the most important thing, but a really important thing here. I think all of these points are important, but a big point to remember is that when investors, Wall Street, when they're talking to you about economics and trying to explain to you economic theory, how economics work, they're always going to talk about it in a way that's meant to bamboozle you, which generally will lead to them, if you know some of your stuff about capitalism, if you know how capitalism works, it'll sound really ridiculously stupid. Like, that's just dumb. I mean, that's just ridiculously stupid to think that if the price of these major goods, I mean, these are things that people really need. When you talk about use value and exchange value, the use value of housing, of gas, I mean, these are what you would call in a socialist context the commanding heights of the economy. The commanding heights of the economy, when they skyrocket, what do you think is going to happen to all the things that use the commanding heights of the economy? It's just ridiculous to think this is not rocket science. If gas is through the roof, why wouldn't cab fares go up? What do you think cab drivers have to do when they're driving? They have to pump. They have to pump at the gas station. This isn't China where 90+% of transit is electric, of this kind of transit in many cities. This is the United States. Everything's diesel or hybrid or whatever hybrid. Most transportation by car, most taxis are diesel. So they're pumping. This isn't rocket science. The service industry uses the commanding heights of the economy sometimes more than anything else. Electricity, rent. You need to have, if those are going up, of course you're going to see hotels raise their prices. You're going to see these smarmy, parasitic landlords raise their prices. You're going to see it across the board. You're going to see it even if it does. This is the thing. You're going to see it even if it doesn't necessarily directly affect that service industry because everyone else is doing it. That's competition. That's how capitalism works. Capitalism is fueled upon competition, which eventually leads to concentration of capital. And usually what that means is capitalists will copy the techniques or try to better them. So if there's inflation happening in all these key industries, and these industries are saying, like the oil industry is saying, oh yeah, let's take all, man. Let's go for it. Let's just hike everything up. You don't think competitors are going to do the same thing? You don't think, I mean, that's just how this works. So when you have an economy, a capitalist economy that is fueled by profit, fueled by private profit, right? We don't have state-owned commanding heights of the economy. We don't have a nationalized energy system, nationalized transportation. We don't have nationalized housing, healthcare, all of that. We don't have that. This is what happens when you have the assault of privatization at the scale that you have it in the United States and in the capitalist world. You have basically big capital, monopoly capital, finance capital, making these decisions based upon what is going to help their bottom line in a moment of extreme. It is a moment of extreme risk. Look, capitalists aren't wrong to think that the Russia-Ukraine situation is not dangerous. It certainly is dangerous. It is dangerous because it is a possible World War III situation. You even had big businesses recently lecturing the United States saying, Biden, stop with this arming of Taiwan. You got to chill out a bit, man. You keep arming Taiwan like this, we could be in a conflict with China that is going to ruin U.S. industry. It's going to ruin U.S. capital. It's going to tank it to a degree never before seen in human history. And so capital isn't wrong for worrying about it. But the psychology of it is secondary to the material interests that are really bearing fruit here, which are really at issue. It's not that the capitalists are just worried and there's so much uncertainty. No, they're telling you. They've created this, what they call a wage price spiral. But it's not a wage price spiral. It's just how to take in a certain moment under given set of conditions. It's how to extract more surplus value in a moment that likely requires the opposite of that. It requires some investment, right? Why do you think Build Back Better, despite how limited it was, is tabled? That requires investment. You need investment in rail. You need investment in roads. You need investment in renewable energy. You need to spend some money. You need to spend some capital. You need to lay down. No. Finance capital is saying no. Debt is the way. Austerity is the way. And now in this moment where you need investment, you need it. People are desperate. Workers are suffering. You need it. Finance capital is saying no. What you need is an economic crisis. So they're telling you to your face, you need an economic crisis. So there's not much else to say on that. I just wanted to give my take on this. It's rudimentary. I do study Marxism as best as I can. Definitely want to get. I'm actually reading The Foundations of Leninism right now by Stalin. It's actually really great. I like it a lot. I highly recommend it. Very short, but I've been doing so much work that I can't wait to talk to Richard Wolff and get a refresher, learn some more about the Marxist economic side of this, because it's always been fascinating to me, and I always like to get that refresher. But I wanted to, before I close up, I'm going to be on call-in at 6:45 p.m. I'm going to send that link in about 15-20 minutes. I did want to, maybe this is kind of, take this as one more segment. And if there's any questions in the super chats, I'm going to get to them. I'm going to try to scroll all the way up. While you're here though, keep liking the stream, keep hitting that subscribe button, notifications bell. And of course, I am just $40 a month, just $40 a month from my goal. Actually, thank you, James Sevier. I'm just $30 a month now from my goal for the year. And, hopefully I can keep that going into the next year so I don't have to continue to ask, because I want to cap it. So with that said, please do support there. But there was one thing, and please, I'm going to try to, if there are any super chats, man, this chat is busy. I love it. Any super chat questions? I don't think there were questions. But any questions that you did have, please put at the bottom of the chat now, okay? Because I want to take them on call-in. But if you can't make it for some reason, 6:45 p.m., I'll try to take them now. But I did want to show you one thing. Little short segment here. Abortion rights. Back to this issue of abortion rights. I just want to say, I'm called a tanky a lot. I'm a tanky. I'm a communist. Oh, you love China. Why don't you move there? Oh, you love the DPRK. Why don't you go there? Why don't you stay there? All this nonsense. You can pay my way there. I don't mind. I wouldn't mind that one bit. This place is looking quite trashy, to be honest. This is the United States of America. But I want to just say that anti-communism is the negation of history, really. I want to show you a bit. It's just brief. I don't know if many people know which was the first country to actually legalize abortion. I don't know if many people know that in the United States. I doubt it. But it was the Soviet Union, 1920. The Soviet Union was the first country to legalize abortion. The Soviet Union was the first country to do a whole lot of things, actually. Gay rights, first to legalize them, first to inscribe in a constitution anti-racial discrimination. It was the first to do a lot of incredible things. So the Soviet Union really does deserve kind of like a history course revision, in the sense that its achievements were quite remarkable. And we can get into that. Maybe I'll bring him, my colleague and comrade Carlos Martinez one day to talk about this, because we do have a plan to write a book about socialist countries, the brief history, but also talk about what we can learn from them, history and in the present. And that will be a book project for the future. But I want to just pull up, right? This is great. So Foreign Policy magazine is an absolute disaster. It is a neocon. I think, what is this? Is this CFR? I think Foreign Policy magazine is an arm of the Council of Foreign Relations. You don't quote me on that, but that's how I generally see it. It seems like it is. But it's a neocon outlet, and but what's great about it is that, kind of like the Wall Street finance capitalist establishment, the foreign policy establishment speaks through Foreign Policy magazine. And here you have Roe abolition makes the U.S. a global outlier. 50 years ago, the United States liberalized abortion laws, and the world followed suit. Now it says today it joins Iran, North Korea, and Russia in rolling back reproductive rights. Well, this is what's really funny about this, because I want to show you a few things. So first, even though this is a really disgusting screed against countries that are fighting imperialism and are really targeted by imperialism, let me just show you what they say about Asia. Blah, blah. I don't want... Oh, here we go. First, post-Soviet Union. So This is how they, I mean, I don't want to read this tangled history of abortion. It's just absolutely gross. It's just propaganda. But in 1920, the Soviet Union was the first country to fully decriminalize medically supervised abortion while still declaring it a social evil that would disappear as the country moved toward communism. And I want to just preface this. They talk about abortion was called a social evil. So what the Soviet Union found to be evil was not the act of abortion. This is what you got to love the anti-communists for these. It wasn't, oh, we hate abortion. We hate that women and families and people are getting abortions. No. They hated the conditions that led to the abortion, because in the Soviet Union, when it first, after the revolution, was extremely poor. Civil War, World War One, semi-feudalism, Tsarism, right? These things weren't necessarily boons for women and for mothers and for parents, right? This wasn't a good social order. And so there was a hotbed of conditions that led to abortion, that led to women. So that was what the evil was. It wasn't the act. It was that it had to exist in the way that it did, right? That it wasn't really about choice. It was about necessity. It was about, shit, I can't have this child because of economic reasons or because of the incidents of rape and just the abuse of women, right? That was rooted in the semi-feudal way of thinking and being. It wasn't the act of abortion. So, but even with that anti-communist screed and ridiculous twisting of facts, have to say that the Soviet Union is the first country to legalize it. So I want to go to Asia. Here we go. So it says the majority of Asians have access to abortion thanks mostly to legalization in India and China. In China, the battle for reproductive rights has taken on a different form. And this is what I love. You got to love the anti-communists and racists for this too, how absolutely low and vile they are. They're saying that now, with anti-abortion American activists and campaigners are fighting against forced sterilizations and coerced abortions used by the Chinese government as part of a family planning program since the 1980s. Although national policy has changed, forced abortion and sterilization remains a major part of China's campaign of genocide. So China is one of the only countries in the world that has abortion rights for people at any stage of pregnancy. And actually, I was reading in CGTN, because there was a lot made about in 2021, the policy changed slightly around abortion. There was a lot in the corporate media that said, oh, well, now China's restricting, China can never do anything right. So when China is legalizing abortion, it's coerced and it's a campaign of genocide, right? Family planning now is genocide. Contraceptives are available in the United States. Sex education, all of that is available in the United States. But it's not genocide. No one's saying, oh, man, you're really genociding those future children. But that's what they're saying about Xinjiang. That's part of the propaganda. That's why you have Adrian Zenz, who's a Christian fundamentalist, who no doubt supports the elimination of Roe v. Wade. That's why he's championing genocide and all that with regard to China. It's a complete reversal. It's like a flip. It's like there is no right or wrong answer. That's not what it's about. It's all politics. It's all geopolitics. It's all imperialism. So that's really ironic. And then, China was talking about how in 2018, beginning then, there was like a record number of abortions. And a lot of it was happening to young women between the ages of 10 to 20, right? And so China decided to change its policy and say, well, we're going to invest way more in sex education and in supporting these women so that they reduce not abortion in general, but repeat abortions, right? So an 11-year and 12-year isn't having sexual relations where they don't know about contraception, they don't know the risks, they don't know X, Y, Z, and they end up having repeat abortions. But that was twisted, of course, to be, oh, well, now China's getting rid of abortion, right? So no matter if China has one of the most one of the most broad policies on abortion, it still is labeled something evil, All right. And I'm just going to show you one more thing. I'm going to get off this horrible article by Foreign Policy. Just show you Cuba, because Cuba has had abortion legal for a long time, more than 5 decades. All right. And I'm going to show you, this is just a mainstream, organization, NGO. The International Campaigns for Women's Right to Safe Abortion said Cuba abortion has been safe and free for over half a century. So in 2016, 85,445 abortions were recorded from 12 to 49 years old in Cuba. Contraceptive use is high. 77.1% of women in stable relationships use it. The number of abortions today represent half of those which took 12 years ago. These figures now include men, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so abortion has been safe and free in Cuba for over half a century. The first abortion laws date back to 1936. But due to the social and government tolerance, private clinics offered abortions to Cuban women who could pay for them, right? So that's that. So the USA women would go to Cuba for this. So Cuba has a religious history. So it's basically saying that there was some pushback from religious groups, and it's a very Catholic, very Christian country. But in 1987, when Fidel took power, but anyway, the Penal Code, which is still in force, established that abortion is only a crime when it is done for profit outside of health institutions by non-medical staff or against a woman's will. So there you go. I mean, Cuba has legalized abortion, safe, effective, free. China, the DPRK also has legalized abortion. I mean, Vietnam has legalized abortion. I mean, these countries, these socialist countries, have legalized abortion. I mean, this is not something that's as controversial. It's not causing a stir like it is here. And I think that just shows you that the United States has something, doesn't have it. I'm not going to call it exceptionalism, because I talk about American exceptionalism a lot. I wrote a book about it. It's not American exceptionalism in the literal sense that there's actually something to really boast about. Oh, so special. But we would be remiss to not think that the United States doesn't have something very unique about it. That is both a reflection of the way that the West has developed over the course of its development through capitalism and imperialism. But the United States is very peculiar. And I think that it has such a strong ideological foundation in this ultra conservatism, in some respects we could call it. I don't even call it that. It really is just the social basis, the social ideological basis for what is the most extreme form of private property and capitalist development. It is. It's the most extreme form that has existed. Now you could say, oh, well, Danny, fascism, Japan, Germany, blah, blah, blah. Those were all outgrowths of the world that was laid bare, in part, not just the United States, but also what used to be the most vicious form of capitalism, the Britain and the in Europe. So really, right, fascism is an outgrowth of European and American capitalism, just like a lot of these issues are outgrowths of this very problem, that there is you call it capitalist culture, bourgeois culture, that comes out of hegemonic culture, that comes out of this vile system that's based upon the exploitation of man by man, of person by person, of Boston worker, of that's what has grown out of this. And the United States is religious zealotry, and the zealotry and extremism of the United States is that much more extreme. And now that it's in this period of crisis, we should not be surprised when things like this happen, but we also need to understand that this isn't the way of the entire world. A lot of the future, the countries that are really representing what the future of the world will and should be, this isn't a controversy, right? This isn't an issue. So that means that we are not alone here. And I think that's the unfortunate thing about what happens with issues like Roe v. Wade, abortion rights, sexism, white supremacy. becomes all about the United. It's become so U.S. centric, Eurocentric. It becomes very individualistic. It gets co-opted by corporate forces, capitalist forces, and these issues can't be resolved or addressed within movement in political spaces because you're then confronted with your enemy within all the time, right? We're constantly confronted with our enemies within, whether it's Democratic Party loyalists and the establishment or just the influence they have on the greater body politic of the activist world, of the movement world, right? And so we have to find ways to make abortion rights, to make any assault on contraceptives, LGBTQ, all of it, it can't stand alone. It can certainly be a part of the program, but it can't stand alone. Because if it does stand alone as a single issue, as it kind of is right now, what look what's happening. Democratic Party putting on their tattered capes, full of lice and moths and all that, putting on their capes and trying to fly us into their graveyard, their political graveyard. That's what we'll get if we continue to go down the path in this way, the political path. So with all of that said, though, everyone, it's been a good stream today. It's been a really good stream. Please do continue to like this stream, subscribe to the channel. Please do hit that notifications bell, and please do subscribe on Patreon and support my work. Patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. I'm just $30 away from the goal that I have set out for the year, which will help keep this work sustainable. And there's other ways to support in the chat. Not in the chat, I mean in the description. But now I'm gonna do a little bit of house cleaning here to end this, okay? So a few announcements. One, I'm going on call-in in about 25 minutes. So with that said, that link is in the description so you can get ready. I'm gonna put it here. I'm going to talk about the NATO summit a little bit because I'm speaking on that on Thursday at an anti-war event for the Canadian Foreign Policy Institute. I'm also going to be talking about Roe v. Wade and taking any of your calls. I mean, the title, don't, housekeeping with Dhaiphong, don't take it literally. That title is just something I needed to choose. But call in, ask your questions. Got about 45 minutes, though, and then I got to take care of some things. And then, so please do, also, please do download the app on Callin. So if you're just going to listen in, that's fine. But it's better if you can join in on the app anyway. So do that if you can. And then tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time, join me with Richard Wolf. We'll talk probably for about an hour. Then I'll stick around with you all afterward. Richard Wolf, 4 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, June 27th. That should be really great. So make sure that you are hitting the notification bell for that particular video. It's already up, ready to go. And it should be really fun to talk. We'll talk more about the economic situation. And then I'll also ask him about Russia, Ukraine, the role of that. And then I'll also ask about China because I actually have been enjoying his analysis about China. So those are the few big announcements-ish. If you really don't like Patreon, I know some people hate Patreon. So if you really hate Patreon, Substack. I just wrote a good article for Father's Day. It's been the anniversary of my father's death, June 24th. So I wrote an article about that. Probably have another one based on the speech I'm going to give on Thursday. So Substack, I also post the stream advice there. So Substack is a great place to be to support me annually. It's just as good, if not better in some respects. I kind of like the way they do things much better. But I have a lot of people on Patreon, so I've been keeping it around. And Substack is great, though. So you can find that link in the description as well. I also want to make sure that you know about my Telegram because that's where I'm posting a lot from as well. I'm using Twitter again because I'm back, but I don't know when I won't be back or when I'll be canceled again. So I'm not relying on Twitter to be my primary social media. So Twitter and Telegram are really like 1A, 1B now. I post all my tweets on Telegram. I post all of the content. I share, honestly, I think I share more of this, the work I'm putting out a little bit more than on Twitter, because I find that the algorithm on Twitter is extremely unfriendly. So there's my Telegram. That is in the chat now. So do follow me there. That's an easy way to know what I'm doing as well. So yeah, this was great, everyone. Join me on call-in in about 20 minutes. I saw some interesting people in the chat. I think I saw is that Jackson in the chat? But nonetheless, it was great. Good turnout. So I got Richard Wolf tomorrow, and then after that, I'm gonna actually not be like out of town, not doing work, but I am gonna be traveling a bit, so I'll be in a different location. Maybe I'll try to stream from there. I'm gonna do this event on Thursday after this anti-war event on Thursday with the Canadian Foreign Policy Institute, and I'll share all that when I get the information to share. But maybe Friday or Saturday, I'll try to stream from there, upstate New York. It may not be as fancy. It's a much smaller place than the one I even live in now. So kind of got to make it work. So I may not be on this fancy camera setup. I may just be on my laptop cam, and I also got to figure out what's going on with my laptop. I think I got to shut it down or something because it's going slow. So with all that said, join me tomorrow. I'll see you all tomorrow. Join me on call-in. About to be there as well. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Felix. Will you be covering BRICS? So I wasn't intending on doing that, but it's really important, and I probably should be covering the BRICS summit. But no, I've had some requests. I just did something for Global Times, actually, on the forced labor issue in the United States, talking about prison labor. And that kind of took a bit of focus away from that for me. And now I have to focus a little bit on NATO and Asia Pacific, and it's all related. But I don't know if I'll be able to get to focusing on it until directly after the fact. But certainly BRICS is an incredible development because of the BRICS Plus that's going on, because there is talk about the currency situation, and Russia-Ukraine has really, I think, really accelerated despite Bolsonaro and all of the ridiculousness of him and Brazil's political situation, which hopefully will be rectified next election. But BRICS has been really pushing forward. So, and now the summit, is, did it already happen? Is it happening? I believe it was, did it happen this weekend? I've been kind of out of it in that respect, but I've seen people talk about it. But yeah, good to be with all of you. It's 6:30 now. I should go because I got to prepare to get on the call-in. So yeah, you know where the call-in is. It's in the description. I will see you. Bring your questions. I'm just going to start with that. I can talk a little bit, but I do just want to hear your questions and use the time accordingly. All right, everyone. Peace out. Like the stream as you're leaving. Hit the notifications bell, subscription button as you're leaving. And of course, the $30 $25 away, I think now, or $30. No, I'm $30 away now from my goal on Patreon. Patreon.com/DannyHaiphong. Join the Patreon, says Big Teal. It's a great community. Thank you so much. Take care. Help sustain this work. I appreciate all of you who do and who are not able to. Take care, everyone. Peace out.